Hare Krishna.
So this is Bhagavana Uvacha.
Hare Krishna.
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha.
अथ चेत् त्वम् इमं धर्मयाम्
अथ चेत्त्वम् इमं धर्म्यम्
साङ्ग्रमं न करिष्यसि
सङ्ग्रामं न करिष्यसि
ततः स्वधर्मं कीर्तिं च
ततः स्वधर्मं कीर्तिं च
हित्वा पापम् अवाप्स्यसि
हित्वा पापमवाप्स्यसि. Very nice.
So in the translation, what I understood here is that Atha, so if Arjuna does not fight in this battle, he does not perform his religious duties that he as a Kshatriya should perform. And we know that also in the other chapters we talked about Atatahi, which is the people that are destroyers of the religion and not the real followers of the truth. The Kshatriya needs to destroy, and that's his duty. Arjuna, as a warrior, he has attained a certain amount of fame, even by the Lord Shiva, from the purport that has said Pashupata Pata Astra. He has impressed Lord Shiva, who was he Lord Shiva was actually in a disguise, and that's when he won Lord Shiva's heart by not giving up as a Kshatriya. So he was a very astute fighter, and it's almost like when you're playing cricket and Sachin comes, Sachin is going to hit sixers, and you're wishing for Sachin to do that. So everyone is looking at Arjuna and saying, look, this is even Hanumanji sitting on the Ratha is waiting for him to, go ahead and do what he is meant to do. Um, in the end, what they're also saying is if he will regret if he doesn't go ahead. If he doesn't go on with the fight, then he will lose the opportunity, and then he is creating a sin in a way that papam avipyasi. So he will have a sinful act in a way. He is impulsive, so he must have a certain amount of rajas in him at the time that tells him that I must not do this. At the same time, he has some amount of sattva to try and save lives, but he doesn't look at his what he's created for as a human. He is for fighting. He's a Kshatriya. So that's his duty. He needs to perform it right. That's what Krishna is telling him. And that's about it, Mataji. Is that
Yes, that's wonderful. That's very good. That's amazing. Would somebody else like to add, please? Or anyone else? Yes, Prabhuji?
Actually, he is one of the great warrior. He has to fight against the enemies, and even the opposite side, big generals like Dronacharya, Karna, and all that great warriors are there. If he doesn't fight, then they will think he's a coward. He is run away, ranachod like that. It comes next to verse. He is running away from the battlefield. So it is a sin for the Kshatriyas, and the Kshatriyas' duty is to fight in the war and protect the people. And like Brahmins, how they do the sacrifice of animals in the when they do the homam and all that. So it is not a sin. It will not be considered a sin. And if we in the battlefield, if Arjuna dies, he is going to attain the Surga. If he doesn't fight, if he win in the battlefield, he is going to get the Rajyam. So there is nothing in that he can go for fight. The Krishna advised him strongly to fight against the enemies and not to run away from the battlefield. That is his advice to the Arjuna. And if he doesn't follow that, he will. It is a sin like that. Anyhow,
Hmm.
he is going to. If he dies, he is going to Swarga.
Hmm. Hmm. Excellent. Yes, Bhadramataji.
When Krishna says this to him, Krishna says, you'll certainly incur sin for neglecting your duties. It must have ruffled. I imagine that it must have ruffled Arjuna's pride and his ego, his sense of who he was, and his sense of duty. It made him, Krishna's using words and tactics to
Goad him.
yes, to sort of bring him into his higher self.
Yes. Yes. Anyone else? Yes, so this is a fairly straightforward verse. So earlier we saw how, okay, in the first chapter we saw Arjuna trot out an argument saying that if I were to go and kill, that's a sinful act. So I'm going to get sinful reaction. So to that, Krishna gives a direct response here. He says, if you don't kill, papam avapsyasi, you will incur sin. Okay, so he says, atachetvam imam dharmyam sangramam. Again, he brings out the fact that this fight is a dharma yuddha. It is based on religious principles. It is your religious duty to fight this war. And we saw in the earlier verse also, Krishna said the same thing. He says, Sukhina kshatriya partha labhante yuddham idrisham. So what kind of yuddha was this? The one that opened up the doors of Swarga. Now, if you were a sinner, there is no way you're going to go into Swarga. Okay? So you've done a lot of good, you go there and you enjoy. Okay? So the very fact that this particular war is opening up the doors of heaven for you, it means that one who does their duty correctly goes to heaven. In fact, the criteria, or the criterion for entering heaven is that you do your dharmic duties perfectly. If you do them perfectly, you go into heaven. So you do all the sacrifices that you're supposed to do. You do all the prayers that the Vedas tell you to do. Everything. You do it perfectly, you go to heaven. And in order to become Indra, the king of heaven, you should have done 100 Ashwamedha Yagyas. In fact, one of Indra's names is Shakra. You'll see that in the Bhagavatam. A synonym for Indra is Shakra. Shakra. That's actually his initials. Suppose my name is Lakshmi Patel, it would be Lapa. Right? So same way, Shakra actually means Shata Kratu. 100 yagyas. The person who's done 100 yagyas, that's his label. So Shakra, Shatakratu. So you do 100 Ashwamedha yagyas, you can go and become Indra. What does that actually tell us? One, that it's not easy. Right? How many of us can actually sit down and do an Ashwamedha yagya, knowing what we know about Ashwamedha yagya? that you take a horse, you let it roam around the earth. Whoever stops it, you got to fight against that person. You got to conquer all that area. You got to collect all the wealth and use it in this yajna. Okay? So it's not just about sacrificing a horse. It's about establishing dharma on earth. Wherever the horse roams, you establish dharma. So which means you are a very dharmic person in the first place. Which is why a person like Yudhishthira or Lord Rama could do the Ashwamedha Yajna, not normal people. Yeah. So you do that. So you do one Ashwamedha Yajna, you're guaranteed to go to heaven. You do 100, you're guaranteed to become the king of heaven. Now, Krishna is telling Arjuna, he says, Ashwamedha Yajna, this Yajna, that Yajna, all that, forget it. You are a Kshatriya. You can't do Yajna. You are a Brahmana. You're not a Brahmana. You're a Kshatriya. But the door of heaven is standing open for you. All you have to do is die. And you go to heaven. That's all. Just go stand there, let an arrow hit you. No problem. Die. But die on the battlefield. Die fighting. And then he says, if you don't do that, if you don't, then you will, what will happen? You will lose your kirti, your reputation. So Arjuna has a reputation as a warrior. Arjuna's reputation is way above all the others over there. Arjuna is the person, like Niyati just said, he fought against Lord Shiva, pleased him, and obtained the Pashupatastra. And like we said earlier, Lord Shiva is death. He's the god of death. He's the god of destruction. Imagine being able to fight and overcome him. How powerful must Arjuna be? And once that happened, all the gods came down from heaven. Indra took him personally back to heaven, made him sit on his throne with him. Okay? And then there was this whole army of Nivatakavachas, they were called, who the Devatas could never win against. Arjuna led the Devatas against them, and in straight one fight, they were overpowered. And then he comes back single-handedly, just one man. And that too when he was in the form of a eunuch, Brahannala. He defeated the entire Kaurava army. Why? Because at that time, Virat was being attacked by on two sides. So the king of Virat, as well as all the other Pandavas who were in his service at that time, they all went to protect one side of it. But that one side was just a small attack. The main attack was coming from the other side. Because everybody was on the opposite side, this side was left undefended. And when that happened, what happened? Uttar, the son, he was a young boy at that time. He stood up and, kind of beat his chest and said, oh, if only I had a charioteer who can take me into war, I can go and single-handedly defeat them all. So Arjuna, as Brahannala, says, yep, I know how to, drive a chariot. Come on, I'll take you. So he agrees. Uttar agrees. Why? Because he says, a eunuch. He's also just showing off just like me. When we have a fault, we tend to find the same fault in others, So when I'm busy beating my chest and showing off, I'm thinking that the other person's also declaring his prowess when he doesn't have any. So Uttar says, yeah, yep, come. But then he realizes that Arjuna is really a fantastic charioteer. Arjuna takes him, he's taking him right in front of the army, and there Uttar just falls to pieces. He goes, no, no, no. He gets down and he starts to run away. Run away from war, which a Kshatriya must never ever do. So you have Arjuna running after him, catching him, and physically carrying him and dumping him in the chariot. And saying that is one thing you must never ever do. And what is Arjuna talking about now?
Run away from the battlefield.
Doing the same thing. Isn't it? So on one hand, it's Arjuna who taught Uttara how to fight. He taught him, well, not necessarily how to physically wield a weapon, but what one must be like when they are facing an enemy. He tells Uttara, he says, you must never run away. Even if you're killed, that's fine. Of course, the rest of the story goes how then, they retrieve Arjuna's weapons, and then Arjuna single-handedly defeats the entire Kaurava army, including Karna. So, Kirti, his Kirti is way up there. And like Niyati said, when you get Sachin Tendulkar on the field, you expect him to hit sixes. When you have Dhoni on the field, you expect him to hit sixes. And if they don't, you're so disappointed. And then what happens? All these headlines in the news saying it's time for them to retire. They're getting old. They're losing their ability. And here it's going to be worse. Because not only is it about him getting old and losing his ability, they're going to say, does that mean that all those stories that we heard about him going to Swarga and getting all those weapons, for him fighting against Shiva and getting the Pashupatastra, is that all a lie? Oh, which means that was just a huge, massive build-up. It's all fake news. No? So, on one hand, you have this whole, all his fame is false. Either that, or that was just a fluke. He really has no prowess. And somehow or the other, he's managed. Maybe he didn't even fight. Maybe he stole the weapons. See, when somebody wants to defame us, infamy can come in so many ways. It's just a matter of imagination. You can't shut people up. And that's what Krishna is saying here. All the kirti, all the fame, all the reputation that you have acquired, and it wasn't acquired just easily. You have put in the hard work. Arjuna is someone who, in the middle of the night, would get up and start practicing shooting arrows in the pitch dark. So, your reputation is hard earned. And what will happen to that? Gone. And second, not only will your reputation go, your sin. You kept saying that, killing them will cause sin. On the contrary, not killing them, not going for this war, forget killing anybody. The very fact that you refuse to fight the war is going to cause sin. And then in the next verse, would anybody like to do this verse?
Akirtim chabibhudani
Aketim chapi bhutani
kadayishyanti te vyayam
kathayishyanti te vyayam
sambhavitasya shakirtim
sambhavitasya chakirti
maranadi adirichyate.
Maranadatirichyate.
People will talk about guilt if you are not going to fight against the enemies. So Krishna motivated him to fight in
Mm,
the battlefield, not
mm,
to run away.
mm,
And he has to, as a Kshatriya, he has to follow the dharma.
mm. Very correct. Anyone else?
And it is worse than the death. That
Yes.
running away from the battlefield is worse than the
Yes.
death.
That's correct. Sorry, Bhadramataji, your mic is off.
Oh, well, I will just say that for one who has been honored, dishonor is worse than death. It's like a Kshatriya has a certain pride in his occupation because it's a very responsible occupation, and it's not an easy occupation. It's a very challenging occupation. So naturally he has a natural sort of pride, not like an egotistical pride necessarily, but like somebody might have a pride in their tradition or something like that. And to lose that, to gain infamy around have such a pride, is more painful than death.
Mm.
Krishna is telling him. I mean, this is maybe for someone like me or someone like us, it's hard to imagine that, but this is a very heavy thing, very intense thing that Krishna is warning Arjuna about.
Yes.
For him, for a Kshatriya.
Yes. 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 So for a Kshatriya, infamy is worse than death. And why for a Kshatriya alone? If we look at our lives, okay, do we see lots of today we see so many people committing suicides, right? And some of those reasons are not even actual dishonors, they're perceived dishonors. You know, what is that? What do they do nowadays on social media? They ghost you, right? So if getting ghosted means, yeah, let's assume you are friends with somebody, and now all of a sudden that person decides they don't like you for whatever reason, okay, and they will stop responding to all your efforts at communication. It's like you just don't exist. You're a ghost.
Social
So,
outcome.
social outcast. Okay. So just for a simple reason like that, you have somebody going off and trying to kill themselves. Yeah. So what Krishna is saying is, for a person who takes so much pride in what they do. So when, again, like Mataji said, when we say pride, it's not that egotistical pride. It is the sense of doing it correctly. That whatever I do it perfectly. I do it correctly. I make a huge effort, a huge amount of sacrifice to get it right. And after I've done all that, and for one who has been honored, sambhavitasya, Krishna says, you have been honored. You have, everywhere you went, people would fall at your feet. They would, praise you. They would stand in a line to give their daughters in marriage to you. Everybody wanted Arjuna as their son-in-law. In fact, the king of Virat wanted to get Arjuna married to Uttara, his daughter. And Arjuna said, no, I'm just too old and I've been her teacher, so I'm like a father. So she can get married to my son. So everybody wants to pay so much respect to you. And now if they start saying that you are absolutely useless, and remember earlier, already Krishna had said what they would call him. They would call him a eunuch. They would call him all kinds of names. And he said that would really hurt you. And now he's saying that is worse than death. So if you're afraid of dying, and this is like Bhadra Mataji said earlier, Krishna is using his words to goad Arjuna. Just in case, Arjuna, if you're afraid of dying, okay, just in case you don't want to fight because you're afraid of death, let me tell you that dishonor is worse than death. Okay, so in various ways, Krishna is goading Arjuna to do his duty. And he's pointing out all the benefits of doing the duty and disadvantages of not doing the duty. Okay, so let's look at the next verse as well. Who'd like to do that? Mataji, would you?
Right?
Yeah. Prabhuji, go on.
Bhayadranadubharadam
Bhayadranadubharatam
mamsyante tvam maharadaha
mamsyante tvam maharathaha
yesham satvam bahumado
yesham chatvam bahumato
bhutva yasyasi lagavam.
bhutva yasyasi laghavam.
Krishna was telling, see Arjuna, the name Arjuna, the opposite parties, that is enemies, they have fear on Arjuna because he possesses lot of weapons. By when they went to Agnada Vasam, at that time he was advised to do some tapas. He did tapas and got weapons from Shiva, that Pashupatastram, and from Indra and others. He has got very highly lethal weapons with him. And the opposite parties, they have really worried about Arjuna. Other than Arjuna, they never bothered about others. Only the thing is, Duryodhana, he had fear on Bhima. Bhima. So people, other whereas other generals, they have worried about Arjuna, his skill on handling the weapons and other things. And if he run away from the battlefield, then it will the big generals from the opposite side like Salya, Karna, and his gurus and all that, they may think this fellow, he is running away from the battlefield because he is impotent. He has got the fear on his life. He is not a real Kshatriya, so he is not fit for saying that he is a skilled warrior. So, to avoid all these infamy things, he has to fight in the battlefield and then get victory.
Yes.
That is the thing he was telling.
Yes, very correct. Very good. So anyone else wants to add anything? Yes, Bhadramataji.
Well, Arjuna is thinking that his logic was that he didn't want to kill his teachers, he didn't want to kill all his relatives, and he was feeling remorse and he was feeling horror at the idea and a lot of pain and compassion. But Krishna points out that although he Arjuna was feeling these things, the other generals on the battlefield would not be aware of that, and they would just immediately think, "Oh, he's left out of cowardice."
That's right.
So Krishna points out that the way Arjuna was thinking within his own mind was not present. So it was not the angle of vision of everyone else.
Yes, true. Yeah.
So in a sense, he's elaborating. Krishna is elaborating on the verse before. The two verses before, you'll lose your reputation. He's elaborating. He's giving more detail on that.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Between Mataji and Prabhuji, they've covered this verse very nicely. The great generals who have highly esteemed your name and fame will think that you have left the battlefield out of fear only, and thus they will consider you a coward. Okay, next one.
I
Would you
can
like to
read
try
the
this?
I
Yes,
can read
Prabhuji?
the verse, but I don't know translation.
Okay, Bhadra Mataji, would you like to read this? Would you like to do this? Verse
Read the Sanskrit?
36? Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Vachivadang Shabahun
Avatyavadamscha
Avachyavadamscha
bahun
Bahun
Vadishyanti Pravahitaha
vadishyanti
Vadishyanti
tavahitaha
Tavahi
Indantastavasam Artyam
nindantastava
Nindantastava
samarthyam
Samartyam
Dukatu Tato Dukataram Nukem.
Tato
tato
Dukkataram
dukkhataram
Dukkhi.
nukim.
Your enemies will describe you in many unkind words and scorn your ability. What could be more painful for you? So this is the fourth verse in which Krishna is really rubbing it in for Arjuna. how he will be dishonored in so many ways, and how even this attitude is not befitting an Aryan person. Yeah, he described his compassion as befitting the non-Aryan.
Mm.
In other words, it's not a high-class person's way of dealing with the situation.
Mm.
And interesting to see how Prabhupada calls it so-called compassion.
Mm.
I wonder why he did that, so-called compassion. Is that perhaps it's because we know that Arjuna was a liberated person and he became apparently under the influence of Maya, just so that Krishna could speak this message for us, for mankind. So is that what Prabhupada is referring to when he says Arjun's so-called compassion?
I would actually think that here Prabhupada is talking about Arjuna's compassion as not really being compassion when it's going against his duty.
No.
So if you, I was, uh, I can't remember where I was reading this, but it was talking about how we all tend to have, a compassion for various things that are happening around us in the world. But sometimes our compassion is misplaced, and how when we need to actually and remember we had talked about earlier about this example of the mother and the child needs a surgery.
Attention.
Yes. And or a small little something that a sword that needs to be drained, and the child sitting and saying, no, I don't want to go for it, I don't want to go for it. And if the mother says, oh, okay, poor child, is so upset about it, let's not take him to the doctor at all, that's not compassion.
Mm.
So that would be so-called compassion. It's misplaced. It's totally, on the contrary, it's not compassion at all. It's just the opposite. You're endangering the child's life, if not
Yes,
just the limb.
yes, yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
here Prabhupada is talking about Arjuna's compassion as being misplaced. And he says, avachya. Vachya means that which should be spoken. Avachya means that which should not be spoken. You know, all these enemies of yours will talk about you in words which really should not be spoken. Nobody should hear such words. You know, and if they are spoken to you, about you, tato dukkataram nukim. What can be more dukkatara? Dukkatara. So this is, you know, you know how we have the comparative and superlative, good, better, best. So dukkataram is comparative. Dukkham, dukkataram, dukkhatamam.
Okay.
So he says, what could be more dukkha than someone speaking such words about you?
So,
And
I'm
these
sorry,
are, sorry?
I didn't quite get that. The three,
So,
the
Mataji, if you remember, we talk about Krishna and Radha, suppose, okay? We say Krishna is Radha's Priyatama. Yeah? So, so it is Priyaha, Priyataraha, Priyatamaha. Most dear.
Superlative.
Superlative. Okay? So you have the comparative, Priyataraha, and superlative, Priyatamaha. So here the same way, Dukkataraha, Dukkatamaha. So he says, what can be more dukkha? So it's a comparative. What can be more painful, giving pain, than people saying words which should not be spoken? And by whom? Tava avahitaha. These are not people who are going to be thinking of your benefit. Hita means benefit. That's why we have the word hiteshi. Na? Hiteshi means one who thinks of your benefit. These are ahitaha. They are your enemies, Arjuna. They are not people who are standing there thinking about your benefit. You are showing them compassion, but you got to remember these are not given a chance, they'll just kill you. Na? So vadishyanti tava ahitaha. All these people, they don't care about you. If they truly cared about you, would they be standing on the opposite side? Or would they be standing here with you? You know this is a dharma yuddha. I'm telling you, dharmyam yuddham. Just 2 verses ago, that's what Krishna called this yuddha. This is a religious war. But these guys are all standing on the opposite side. Tava ahitaha. They are not thinking for your benefit at all. All they want to do is kill you. And you are standing here saying you don't want to kill them. How does that even work? And nindantaha tava samarthyam. You have a lot of ability, samarthyam. They will just insult that ability. Nindantaha. And these are the people you don't want to fight against. And that is why Prabhupada calls it so-called compassion.
yes. It kind of reminds me of the incident when, after the battle, when the 5 sons of the Pandavas were killed by Ashwatthama, and Draupadi she wanted to have some compassion for Ashwatthama and not have him killed because his wife would grieve.
His mother.
Oh, was it his mother?
Yeah, Kripi. She says, I, as a mother, know what I am going through when my children have been killed.
Yes.
So, yeah, I don't want another mother to go through it.
Yes.
So, yes. Yeah. And there she's doing her dharma as a woman. Women are soft-hearted. Women are not, at least we're not talking about Kshatriya women here. I mean, she is not a warrior. She's not someone who's going to pick up a bow and arrow or a sword and go out and kill people. She is a very motherly person. So for her, killing someone just in front of her eyes, whereas she's the one who said, I want Dushasan killed. Remember, she said, I will not tie my hair till Bhima brings Dushasana's blood and anoints my hair with it.
Mm.
So on one hand, you have that, and on the other hand, you have this.
Yes.
So Draupadi is actually a woman of many layers.
Mm. Mm. Wow. When did she make that statement?
Oh, that's before the war. So that's
When she was insulted in the palace, in front
yeah,
of all the kings and all that, Dukshasana, he was removing her sari. So at that time, he was asking Parandama, Krishna, save my life, like that.
yeah. So when
At that
she asked after that whole episode was over, she and the Pandavas, she's crying, and the Pandavas are trying to console her, you know, because remember they've lost everything now, and they're going off to the forest.
Mm.
At that time, when she's crying, she is feeling so insulted. She is so angry.
Mm.
She's especially so angry at Yudhishthira for stopping Bhima from at that time, because when Dushasana was disrobing her, Bhima wanted to get up and break Dushasana's arms,
Mm.
but Yudhishthira stops him. So she's actually very angry with Yudhishthira at that time.
Mm.
She says, how could you let it happen?
Mm.
You know, you are Dharma Raja. And then he goes on to say, yeah, but then I was already his slave. So, my dharma has changed in this particular position, which is again, which is what, which is the age-old question. What was the dharma of all those people who were sitting there at that time, who didn't raise a finger to protect Draupadi? Because she approaches, she calls out to each one of them. The only one who came and saved her was Lord Shri Krishna.
Mm.
So how is it? How is everyone's dharma being satisfied? When she asked Bhishma, he's sitting there going, "I don't know what to do. You are the grandfather. She's your grandchild. She's a granddaughter-in-law." So there's this just again, the whole confusion about what my dharma is. What should I do in a situation like this? Oh, I'm actually beholden to this person. I am so and so's slave, or I am beholden to the throne, which was Bhishma Dev's argument. So again, that leads us to another whole discussion about what was the dharma of each of those persons.
Mm.
So we'll finish off with the last verse. text 37. So who would like to do this? Hare Krishna, Harini, would you like to read this verse? Yes, please go ahead.
हतो वा प्राप्स्यसि स्वर्गम्
अतो
Hato
वा
va
प्राप्स्यसि
prapsyasi
स्वर्गम्
swargam.
जित्वा वा भोक्ष्यसे महीम्
जित्वा
Jitva
वा
va
भोक्ष्यसे
bhokshase
महीम्
mahim.
तस्मात् उत्तिष्ठ कौन्तेय
तस्मात्
Tasmad
उत्तिष्ठ
uttishta
कौन्तेय
kaunteya.
युद्धाय कृतनिश्चयः
Yuddhaya
युद्धाय
krita
कृतनिश्चयः
nishchayaha. Ooh, I'm so proud of you. How old are you now?
10.
10. So this is, they've just joined us today, but we know Harini, her older brother Bhavan, and her younger brother Yadavan from before the time they were born. So they are such wonderful children, and their parents are such wonderful parents. They are so talented in music, mridangam. They go for Veda classes. They learn Tamil, so they know all the Tamil shlokas. They know so much of they know way, way more than anything I know. They are just amazing kids. And they are, yesterday we were talking about the three modes. Mode of goodness, prime examples. Okay, Harini, would you like to explain this verse?
Okay.
Yeah, try.
So Krishna, he gives two options. He like tells that there's two possibilities.
Mhm.
That the first one would be he would be killed on the battlefield and he would go to heaven, or he would win the battle and he would enjoy the earthly pleasures and just stay in earth. So he says, therefore, get up with determination and fight.
Yes, beautiful. Very well done. Thank you. That was very clear, wasn't it?
Yes.
So you have two options, Arjuna. You can either go to heaven and enjoy over there, or you can win here and enjoy over here. Either way, this battle means enjoyment for you.
win-win situation.
It's a win-win situation. So get up and fight. Uttishta. This is a call to action. This is the first time from the beginning, Krishna actually tells Arjuna, get up and fight. Now, taking a verse like this, you will have some idiots, and I don't have any problem calling them idiots, who go out and say the Bhagavad Gita is a book that preaches war.
Mm.
It does not preach war.
Mm.
Even here, Krishna is not saying get up and fight because it's a nice thing to do, it's fun to do. He's saying it's because that is dharma. You do your dharma. And in the very next verse, he clarifies it. He says, I'm not telling you to do because, you can then go have fun. That killing is fun. That is not what I'm saying. He clarifies it in the next verse, which we'll look at on Tuesday. Okay?
Tuesday, is it?
Yes, Mataji. Tuesday evening, 7 o'clock.
Okay.
Is 7 okay, or do we want to make it 7:30?
7 is okay.
7 is okay for everybody?
Mataji?
Yeah? Is it okay for you, Harini and Yadavan and all?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Okay, excellent. So next week, on Tuesday, we'll see how many we can do. So who would like to do text 38 on Tuesday? Okay, Harini's turn. Excellent job. Okay. Harini can do 38. Who would like to do 39? Give it a try. We may or may not do 39 on Tuesday, but you can be ready with 39. Okay, Niyati can do 39. Okay. And we'll look at 39. And who would like to do 40? Would you like to do that, Prabhuji?
Let me
Aditya,
try.
okay, excellent. Parthasati Prabhu, you do 40.
Okay.
And 41. Would Aditya Prabhu like to do that?
Mataji, I'll be coming on Saturday.
Yeah, I
Directly.
think 41 will be
Will be
around
done.
Saturday
Yeah.
or Sunday only.
All good. I'll do the 41 thing.
Okay,
Thank
excellent.
you. Thank you.
And even if, if we finish early, we'll stop and wait for you. Okay. Okay. So this is very nice. This is so nice. It's really nice. Thank you so much, all of you. So,
Yeah,
any
thank you.
questions? No? So, shall we stop here then?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Hare
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna,
Hare
everyone.
Krishna.
Thank you.
So, how are you, Janesha Mataji? It's so nice to see you.
Oh, I am good, Mataji. I didn't want to miss it.